Pushing it.
Yeah.
Amazing. What happens at the volunteer level here is you get to meet neighbors that you perhaps wouldn't have gotten to know in any other way. You also make Highland Park what it really is. We may be council and mayor and setting policy and all that jazz, but you guys are what really make Highland Park run. So I want to thank you all very much for the time and effort that you put in every single day, because I know it's an everyday kind of thing. In fact, I also want to thank right now 2 volunteers that are here from our communications team helping us with all of this tonight. Mr. Gary Leslie, otherwise known as our photographer. Can you tell us your name?
Reiko Schnitzen.
Reiko, right here. So for those less fortunate who could not make it out tonight, they'll be able to see our event tonight in pictures and on television. So I don't want to delay people because there's a whole bunch of good cookies out there. At this point, I'd like to ask the Council President, Phil George, to come up and say a few words.
So I will say a few words and keep it to a few because, as the mayor said, we have 200 volunteers in town. And I would just like to point out, more so than just being volunteers on boards, you set policy. You help us recommend policies in your own specific areas. We have so many volunteers in Highland Park, and in my years as prosecutor, as council member, and as council president, I find you volunteers show 3 characteristics, and I'll try to be kind. You're bursting at the seams to show your technical, professional, and life skills with the rest of us. You like what you're doing, and you have a commitment to contributing to the various levels of community in which you live your lives, including ours, but not limited to ours. As Thomas Jefferson said, I believe that every human feels the pleasure in doing good for another. This pleasure, and the pleasure of working together, as the mayor has said, is all the reward you get except dry cookies in the lobby. Jefferson's message is all the more critical these days in the challenge to civility, understanding, tolerance, and equity, which seems at times to be a current brand for America. Deception, remote and unfeeling social media, lack of face-to-face cooperation, and unfettered and unfocused confrontation in our nation. The divisions deepen nationally. That's why you're the savior of our community life. I know all of you, not always by name, but by sight. Some of you stop by and have discussions about important policies or my roses in the mornings when you walk by. I noticed a lot of you bending over and smelling my roses. They're there and the same spirit that you volunteer. So they're not in the backyard, they're right up front so you can see them. You're right up front so we can see you. This is what's important to us. On a broader national level, we seem to be moving away from Jefferson's belief in this pleasure, from doing good for others, away from our social contract with each other, even while we in our most local sense are more and more acculturated to service to the community, not as abstract institutions, but as distinct faces in the street, real people in meetings, real neighbors in the temple, in the church, and in the mosque. More so, I see our expanding group of volunteers as less of an activist movement, although individually, many of you are activists for environmental causes, equity and race, education, and opportunity. Certainly your activist hearts. Mine comes from coming of age in the mid-60s and rebelling against the mayor in my town, who happened to be my father. Your activist hearts guide your motivation to serve. But here, our activist motivation seems to be tempered with the ability, whether innate or learned, to take the time to listen, to take the time to huddle with each other, to take an assignment through the plan, and to be willing to those of us like me who tell you, do what you like, but that's all the money in your budget. And I found that after preaching that, sometimes a little bit on the nasty side, that you understand that, and the ideas coming out, percolating around, that get things done for the town, that we as council can't visualize. We're stuck with statutes, rules, regulations, requirements, lawsuits, laws, lawyers. That you bring these ideas to fruition and you make them happen. And in the involvement in our policy setting, I find you to be more important than most. As Muhammad Ali said, giving back is the rent you pay for getting to live on this earth. And I thank you and value you all for that. So welcome, volunteers. You all deserve a round of applause, whether you're awarded tonight or not. You feel like you owe it, and a lot of our business wouldn't get done without you because of that feeling. And thank you all.
Okay, so now we're going to get right on to the business at hand. We're going to start with certificates for our our administration awards and committees, and that's my area. So I want to call up Allison Baldwin from HPTV. Is she here? Okay. And Mason Resnick from our Public Information Committee. Okay, so they are both not here. Gary, would you like to say something a little bit about Allison?
Sure. So, Allison has been a volunteer for HPTV. What?
You can turn it the other way so you can see.
Allison,
You're on TV now.
this is very Allison has been a volunteer for HPTV a little bit over a year. One of the particular things that she did was she produced a couple of programs where she organized children books readings of holiday books for Halloween, for Christmas, for Kwanzaa, for Hanukkah. How could I forget that one?
Yeah.
And so it turned out really well. It got good reception. And for those of you who know, producing a program even on this level takes a lot of work. And so she did a great job, and that's why we nominated her.
Thank you.
Should I say something?
Let me tell you a little about Mason Resnick. I actually first met Mason when he was taking bar mitzvah pictures for someone, and I was at the event. And he was doing such a great job getting such really good candid shots. I approached him and I said, you know, we really need to have a photographer on our Public Information Committee. And he said, absolutely. There was no hesitancy whatsoever in his voice. And Matt, you were chair of Public Information at the time. And he just jumped right in there. And you can see the results of his work all over our Highland Park Facebook page. He's been at all of our events. He's a great guy and always willing to help. So I will gratefully accept this. And the first one goes to Mr. John Marin, who is, I think you're the co-chair.
Yeah, vice chair.
Vice chair. Up here, John.
My vice is in the field.
I must tell you, our Arts Commission has grown so much over the years. We've done so many wonderful things, from walks throughout town, in window displays, and encouraging artists and finding ways to help them earn a living. I think it's fabulous. And one of John's pieces is hanging in my office, so if you ever want to see his work, please come and stop by, and thank you, John.
Thank you.
He's also our liaison, the Arts Commission liaison to Main Street.
Ah, oh, great.
Yeah, we try to bring it all together.
Okay, let's.
Okay.
What's he doing?
Here's my little commercial. We're also sponsoring a chalk art festival, which was very successful last year. We had 70 families out there doing chalk art. It's on the same night as National Night Out on South 3rd, yes. So come out, and if you want to be an artist at it, it doesn't cost anything. We'll give you all the chalk you need.
And now is Roel Fradkine from the Historical Commission here. Okay. Anne Glock from the Council on Aging. I don't see her here. I can tell you that Anne is one of the most active and well-spoken seniors I know. She has organized a whole group of ex-professionals, retired professionals. They're always professionals, they're just retired professionals, to help the municipality in so many ways. She has monthly meetings with them, and many times I'm asked to come and speak with them. It's really a great thing that she does over here. Nick Kambitsis could not be here, but he's getting the award for Recreation Advisory Committee. And Nick has been working on the Rec Advisory Committee for many years now and has contributed in so many ways to so many of our rec programs. Joshua Chen, are you here? Okay, I don't see him. Josh has been working on our Municipal Alliance for quite some time now, and those are all committees that our Councilwoman Stephanie Kim Chohan has been working with over the years. And tonight, Anne Cheryl White, where is she? I know she's here. There she is. Anne Cheryl White is receiving an award for her work on Community Emergency Response Team. And I just want to say something about this woman here. She has served in so many roles here in Highland Park, from the Boy Scouts, a lot of Boy Scout years, and just recently was one of the residents that responded to a major fire that was occurring at 30 South Adelaide Avenue a few nights ago. So I want to thank you. She and her team were comforting so many of the residents that were living there. In fact, someone on your team grabbed a guitar, I understand.
I called my best friend and my husband, who gave credit for coming and singing.
And they helped to keep everybody calm that way. So thank you again, Aunt Cheryl.
I would just like to add, CERT is very new in Highland Park, and we are still looking for volunteers, and anybody that has questions about what we do or has a little bit of extra time, you're welcome to join us.
Thank you. Which is the Digital Data Task Force has nominated Keith Peckman as their Volunteer of the Year. I don't think I see Keith here tonight, so I will be happy to get this to you.
Thank you, everybody. It is my pleasure to start on the Commission for Universal Access, which makes sure that any development in town meets not only ADA standards, but meets the standards of our borough, to ensure that there is access for all, for anybody for anybody who requires any additional access. So Yandra Strike, he is a member of our commission, and he has been integral on working on an inclusive playground. And he's also involved. He's also involved in Councilwoman Wilkins' area too, to make sure that we just noticed a typo.
We'll get you a new certificate.
The next is for our Commission on Immigrant and Refugee Affairs. This is a new municipal commission that we formed in 2017 following the passage of our I'm sorry, my brain's a little scrambled right now. We just had to clean up a little mess up here. Following our Inclusive Communities Resolution, which ensures that the borough has applies equal protections and fairness for all of our residents, including our vulnerable immigrant community. We thought it was necessary to form a new commission to recommend new policies and to develop certain actions that will make sure that everybody in our community has access to a fair, equitable, and dignified existence here in Highland Park. So Isabel Rowano, who I've known for a very long time, since our oldest kids were very small, is also very active. Is also an immigration activist. She's been very involved for a long time, and she really stepped up big time last year to help us develop our policies and to really get things moving with our commission. I can't begin to thank you enough. We're actually losing her and her husband. They're fortunate enough to. They're moving to Florida, so hopefully you will be able to achieve similar greatness there. We're so appreciative for everything you've given the borough, and you've just gotten momentum, having everything without you. Thank you, Isabel. So the food pantry, I'm not wearing my food pantry pin tonight because I'm just wearing my Highland Park pin because I wanted to be fair. But I do wear my food pantry pin because it's so big, it's like a billboard. And I wear it at council meetings sometimes because it's just, I think it just really embodies the spirit of the food pantry. It's a white pin with simple black text that says, I support the food pantry. And I know some of you are wearing them tonight. I see them because they're visible from a mile away. This is one of the hard. I think this is the hardest working volunteer group that I've ever. I mean, I used to be with the board commission, as the mayor mentioned, and this is one of the hardest working volunteer groups that I've ever worked with. What they achieve for our neediest clients in Highland Park is nothing short of miraculous. And I knew it intellectually, cerebrally, but it wasn't until last year when we were doing it was an early morning. There was a truck that came in. Maybe it was back in, I forget when it was. Maybe it was in March actually, when it was about 12 degrees outside, and there were a dozen volunteers outside just getting food off the truck. So the service that they provide cannot be underestimated, and the amount of work that they put into it also is also unsurpassed. So Bruce Bush is our volunteer of the year from the food pantry. Janice Baller, our chair. You can do a lot better than I can, but can you explain a little bit about what Bruce introduced new technology to help us track our clientele? Maybe Janice can explain.
Bruce does many things, and he was really disappointed not to be here, so I would like to read. He didn't make a very thoughtful statement, but just so you get a context, what Matt just mentioned, we have the clients that we service. Bruce is in charge of compliance. Part of compliance is because we get food from government sources, we need to keep track of everything we get in and everything that goes out and for our clients. And it was all done hand, paper, and pencil, and we have to do reports. And Bruce revolutionized everything by putting in something called Oasis, where everything is now computerized. And I think we're probably one of the only food pantries. I was just at the Community Food Bank of New Jersey last week, and I think we're one of the few in the state that are doing this. And I think Bruce taught them a few lessons when he debugged it. But I would like to read, he wrote some thoughtful comments because he really wanted to be here, but I'd like to read them. This is from Bruce. Thank you to all my colleagues at the Highland Park Community Food Pantry. As we like to say, this machine has many moving parts. Distribution teams, food pickup and shelving teams, food supply, management, recruitment, our dedicated outreach and marketing volunteers, generous neighbors who contribute money, time, and foodstuffs, reporting to state and federal agencies, whether on paper or electronically, is just a final step to keep the supplies flowing. I've worked with all of you over the past 3 years, and it's been a joy. And he really is, he's so dedicated, so we're really pleased to be able to give him the support, and we wish that.
Thank you, Janice. And actually, I would like to, may I just say one more thing about the food pantry? I don't want to take up too much time, but the food pantry is one of the few food pantries that is actually a municipal agency. In a lot of towns, it's an independent nonprofit that's operated out of a church or a house of worship. So this is actually a municipal agency, and we ran into some problems because we are so innovative when it comes to this operation that one of our major food providers didn't know what to do with us because we weren't a nonprofit. So we actually had to partner with another nonprofit in order to conform to the standard of this food provider. So we are ahead of the curve when it comes to providing our residents in need of food, and I know it'll stay that way. So thank you, Janice. So the next is our Highland Park Board of Health, and which oversees our public health policies here in town. We work very closely with the county. So Cassie Kingsbury is a new member is relatively new member to the Board of Health. I first met her at our Immigrant and Refugee Forum in March of 2017. We started speaking afterwards, and she expressed an interest in public health, and that was really what her energy is. And she came on with a couple of new members and just brought a whole new level of energy to the Board of Health that is, not only much needed, but it's always good to have new ideas and new thinking and have new people involved, which is why we're always looking for. We have our seasoned volunteers, but also have new people, just new ideas who come with a different perspective is really important. So Cassie brings that. You're a full member. You're a full member now. Yeah. And so she was an alternate, and then we had a few openings come up, and now she's a full member of the Board of Health, and we're just ecstatic that you're there. And I know Jay Cross is also a member of the Board of Health. He's here too. So it's and Laurel. I'm sorry. So Cassie, please come up. So it just goes to show, though, that when people come out to public events and public meetings, we're always scouting for talent. It's true. So Highland Park Gives a Hoot is also a new municipal agency that used to be an independent nonprofit endorsed by the borough, but provides food for school-age students when school's not in session. This and what's been exciting this year is that they've begun to broaden their scope a little bit. Just last week we announced that we'll be paying for we'll be supporting 27 scholarships to the Highland Park Summer Camp. And it's it provides just an immensely valuable service. I look forward to them growing too, because they really have gone beyond just their initial purpose. So this is Marilyn Cruz. Is Marilyn here? I didn't see her. No. Okay. All right. We'll give it up to Marilyn for Marilyn. The Highland Park Housing Authority, also so the Highland Park. As many of you know, the Highland Park Housing Authority oversees our 124 public housing units here in town to make sure that we have affordable public homes here in Highland Park. Don Monk is a relatively new member. He's been there for a few years. He's not here because we have a housing authority meeting right now. He is, he's an economics professor at Rutgers, but he has a real eye for numbers, and he has been invaluable in helping us transition the Highland Park Housing Authority into HUD's RAD program. What is RAD? RAD is the Rental Assistance Demonstration. It's basically a program from HUD because there's no more money coming from HUD into our public housing. We're losing public housing units across the board throughout the country. There's roughly a $30 billion, we have roughly $30 billion in unmet capital needs in our public housing stock. So the RAD program allows us to partner with outside investors. We could have gone with a PNC bank or anything, but we actually partnered with a great community development financial institution based in New Brunswick called New Jersey Community Capital. And they are mission-based affordable housing developers. So Don was integral in making sure that that contractual arrangement was square, that we were getting a fair deal with the interest that we needed, and so he was, and so his involvement and the whole housing authority's involvement in making sure that those units stay public, stay publicly managed, and stay online was a huge feat. So Don, thank you. And our last is the Human Relations Commission. The Human Relations Commission works to foster cross-cultural understanding here in town. We have a few flagship events, the Martin Luther King Humanitarian Awards, the 9/11 Day of Discussion. But one of our newest programs is one that our Volunteer of the Year, Julie Luck, introduced, is our book club. And so what the book club aims to do is, and Leticia Cataldi, who's a member of our Immigrant Refugee Commission, thank you. Thank you, Leticia. Leticia is a member of our Immigrant Refugee Commission, but is also a frequent participant in our Human Relations Commission's activities. So the book club basically looks, roughly every quarter we choose a new book that examines, again, cross-cultural understanding. So this is the third book. This is actually being, this is happening, we're having a discussion of this tomorrow, right here at the Senior Center, and with the author, Crystal Sattel, is going to be here. It's encouraged that you read the book, but I hope that you'll come anyway. This is Secrets We Kept, 3 Women of Trinidad. This program has been wildly successful. Our last book that we read was it White Rage? Was that the last one? And it was also germane to a lot of discussion that we're having in town. So it fostered a real community discussion as well. And it's exactly what we need to be doing. And thank you, Julie, for getting that going. And that's it. Thank you.
Main Street is one of our organizations that has a lot of different volunteers in a lot of different committees. And there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes that you don't even quite know about. On the Avenue, there are these beautiful planters, and we have the planting day that people come to volunteer for. And it just makes the whole town look beautiful the entire season as the flowers and the leaves are very colorful. Ira Grassgreen is one of the leaders behind the entire program, and nobody ever even knows his name. I don't think, is he here today? But we could not do any of the planters and the beautification of Highland Park without him. So to Ira Grassgreen. Our planning board is going to be very busy this year. We've got a lot of things on the pipeline, and Alan Kluger, who is the vice chair now of the planning board, has been a committed member of the board and always comes with great ideas and a lot of insight. And this one's to Alan Kluger. Our zoning board recipient is not in the country. Wolfram Hofer is an accomplished landscape architect, and he, again, brings an intelligence of design and concept, and we're just very, very delighted that he's part of our zoning board, so this is terrific. Nobody's here today, except for Mr. Our redevelopment agency, as you may know, the Borough Council has taken that in-house now. But we had a very dedicated group of commissioners on the agency. Bob Fector joined he was the latest one to join the committee. And as soon as he joined, he started volunteering for things. We didn't really have a treasury before, or somebody that was looking at all the bank statements, and he quickly just took that right on and took ownership of it and kept us in compliance with all the requirements. So to Bob Fector. And I guess Judy Monk is not here either. Our Rehabilitation and Redevelopment Screening Committee is it's a committee where developers can come prior to going to the planning board or the zoning board, before they invest a lot of time, effort, and money into their project, which they can sometimes consider their baby, so there's a lot at stake here. They meet with our borough planner and our screening committee. And the committee is made up of 2 members of each, the planning board, the zoning board, the redevelopment agency, Main Street, I think that's, oh God. And Judy is on our planning board, and she also volunteers on our screening committee. She is an architect, and she brings a wealth of knowledge to the screening committee as far as design and concept and planning work, so it's a pleasure to have her.
One would think that, to some extent, the Public Works group is sort of invisible compared to all of the groups that we hear about and talk about and are the subject of public debate. But I have to say that I actually volunteer with these volunteers. They're the ones who get money. They're the ones who work in the rain. They're the ones that work hard. Some of our groups, the Shade Tree Advisory Committee, is in charge of the green canopy for the entire town. And we were one of the first tree cities in the state of New Jersey because of their work. The Environmental Commission is a statutorily required board, but not only does it screen all applications that come into town for development, for planning, even for small development, they review it for environmental compliance, but also for the benefit of the neighbors and the neighborhood, and apply their knowledge. Sustainable Highland Park is a part of a program of Sustainable New Jersey, which is dedicated in the last years as we become more conscious of trying to maintain what we have rather than wasting, to develop what we have in an ongoing way rather than in a one-shot way. And Sustainable Highland Park works hard on that. We even have middle school volunteers on Sustainable Highland Park. So first, I'd like to address the Environmental Commission's nominee is Steve Barnes. And of everyone that's here, they're wearing their uniforms tonight for the Highland Park Meadows Trail Crew. The Highland Park Meadows Trail Crew is under the Environmental Commission, and it maintains and is developing the entire waterfront area from the lower meadows down. They were also instrumental not only in maintaining it, in administering the National Trails Grant, but if you've had the opportunity, and you may not have, to take a walk down through that area, they're actually developing the entire area, maintaining it, and in cooperation with some members of Sustainable Highland Park and the Native Plant Preserve, developed a program and an inventory of native plants, animals, flora, and fauna, and the importance of the river to give to DEP, which was part of the way that we broke the logjam to get the solar field that PSE&G is developing. Their position paper was very important and helped the administration and our assembly to get that plan. So the first award is to Steve Barnes. Steve is part and parcel of the other volunteers who are Craig Ambroch, Don Jobbins, Tom Glynn, who broke my saw when we were cleaning the wisteria in a rainstorm, Olivia Olansky, Sam McDonald, Susan Arve, and Alan Williams. I'd like to congratulate Steve. We've spent a lot of time talking. I regard him as a friend. He's described himself at a last very loud environmental commission meeting as an angry environmentalist.
I just wanted to have Sam, Susan, can you stand up? These are two more members of the
They helped us load my pickup truck to move plants where our volunteers actually inventory plants to winter over, and we took them down so that we could begin the spring planting, and all four of us crammed into my pickup truck. Thank you.
These volunteers, along with several others, they get cold, wet, and dirty. They come out and they work hard, they do a lot of work that people who use the trail down there recognize, and I just am so pleased and proud to be able to work with a group of volunteers like this that come out and understand that the borough's environment is where we all live, and they're doing their contribution to take care of it.
As I mentioned, Sustainable Highland Park is part of the Public Works liaison. The Sustainable Highland Park is under a state program, Sustainable Jersey. They support community efforts to reduce waste, cut greenhouse gas emissions, improve environmental quality. And as the big push in Highland Park has been reduce plastic in the environment, we're now moving to microplastics. Another thing that we suggested, and this is the interplay, DPW is complaining about man hours to remove yard waste. We do leaf collection, which is recyclable in a certain way, but people clean their yards, or they trim their bushes, or they have some branches that fall. We pay $65 a ton to dispose of them. So DPW mentioned it. I went to Sustainable Highland Park and said, could you guys start working on this and find a way that we may be able to stop this? And they're already hard at work on that, in addition to their plastic reduction plan. Tina Weishaus is the chair, Alan Williams, Paul Sawyers, Sylvia Hove, Kira Herzog, Sophia McDermott, Wendy Rosen, Randy Solomon, Irene Chan Marks, Andy Benish, Haggett Mano, and Nicole Wines of Race as our members. I also specifically welcome the newly appointed members, Sylvia Hove and Paul Sowers. But our nominee tonight for Volunteer of the Year for Sustainable Highland Park is not John Bolton. It's Alan Williams, who has the same mustache. Alan and I have known each other for quite a while, even in my days as prosecutor, when he would stop by. Alan and I have our Friday afternoon meetings at Pino's to discuss issues. He calls me when he has issues. We oftentimes disagree, but we always reach a consensus, and it's a good consensus because it works. Every consensus, every plan, every bottleneck we've run into has been solved perfectly and cheaply. And one of my big concerns with one of the big budget items in town, DPW, is to contain costs. And Alan and I have always come up with plans that Borough Council actually likes and says, wow, we never thought of that. I really admire Alan. I admire his work. I admire his friendship. I admire his ideas. And I admire that John Bolton copied him. Alan, would you come up, please? Congratulations. Thank you. And finally, the group that I lovingly refer to it, Karen, it is lovingly, no matter what you think, as my problem child, is the Shade Tree Advisory Committee. And the reason that they're a problem child is because their portfolio is one of the most difficult in town. Is not only to look after street trees, not only to see what trees should be cut down, but to do it properly, to do it environmentally, to do it cost effectively, and to work with, as volunteers, directly coordinating with DPW's work crews, who actually have to perform the work. On top of that, again, this is another group on the street, walking around. In the last few years, it's just come to completion. They have completed a complete inventory of all of our street trees so that we can properly maintain them, so that just like other preventative maintenance, we can do the appropriate maintenance. We can maintain our trees. It's one of the big assets in town. Is the canopy that we have and the shade that we can walk in. And the Shade Tree Advisory Committee, again, is ordinance created and empowered by state law. And to administer all the regulations that they have to on a volunteer basis is really quite an achievement. And I call them my problem child because they do have one of the biggest problems, is how to coordinate the smallest working group with the biggest organization, DPW, to get the work done. And yet they do it, and they do it well. As you can see right out here, the plantings they did. Walk down your street, the trees they maintain. You see the work that they do. Very small and very invisible because they're not obvious. They're not on Facebook. They're not texting. The trees are just there, and they've been there before us. And because of staff, they'll be there after us. So I'd like to give this award, and unfortunately she's not here tonight. Carol Abiscard was the chair of this organization for 13 years. 13 years, one of the longest volunteers and the longest chairpersons that we've had in town. And her work in revitalizing staff, in organizing it, in keeping it going, and in keeping everybody in the organization focused when everybody has a different specialty that they bring, was admirable. And I enjoyed working with her, and I enjoyed arguing with her, because again, we managed to reach a piece that worked for the town. So thank you, Carol Abiscard. And I would just like to make one brief mention of volunteers who aren't volunteers. Again, a lot of these public works groups are relatively invisible in the scheme of things that are important right now in Highland Park. But each one of these groups owes a lot to and works very closely with our DPW department. For some of the work that has to be implemented, it has to be done with borough equipment and borough tools, and they are always willing to help. Just this morning I was walking in the native plant preserve early this morning with Mary Denver, looking at some of the planting areas that need to be maintained. The DPW right away said, we'll take care of it, not a problem. A lot of times it's done in the same day, and they're getting the job done on a work order that's in between everything else. You know, the more visible work that we tend to just ignore a little bit. The trash trucks, the recycling trucks, the pothole patching tends to be background noise to us sometimes, but they actually fit in work for our volunteers. And I'd just like to give a congratulations to these non-volunteer volunteers.
Okay, and now we come to the Volunteer of the Year. I'd like to ask Councilwoman Welkowitz and Trish to come up. Not you yet. Highland Park is really, really lucky in many, oh, and Fern, I didn't see you there. Highland Park is a really, really lucky community in many, many ways. One of the things that I hear when I go to different mayor meetings is how jealous so many of the mayors of other surrounding and Middlesex County communities are of Highland Park. Why are they jealous? Number one, we have such a great population here. We're diverse, we have all different economic levels, we have all different educational levels. 60% of our population is related to Rutgers in some way, shape, or form, and so we get all these volunteers with so much knowledge. But one thing that they tell me all the time is, we have a walkable community. We have a downtown that's very walkable. We can walk from our homes to a train that takes us either to Philadelphia or New York or other places. We can walk in the other direction towards Edison and beyond. If you walk along the parks, you can actually get, I learned this from Councilwoman Welkowitz one day, you can actually get from Highland Park to Perth Amboy. But the thing that I think makes us really special, besides all of you, is the quality of life that we can have here. It's really different from so many other communities. And one of the committees that has been working on improving our quality of life, even beyond where it is now, is our Safe Walking and Cycling Committee. I'm going to let Susie tell you a little bit about that, and certainly you guys can tell us more about your work and about Sean. So go ahead.
Okay, thank you. We formed our Safe Walking and Cycling Committee just a few years ago. It came out of the Complete Streets efforts that was led actually by Peter Bilton, who's in the audience. Peter's also a transportation professional, and he is on our Safe Walking and Cycling Committee. Jan Verstrati is also on our committee as well. Trish Sanchez is our chair, and Fern Goodhart is our co-chair. And we've been looking, so we try to move ahead. We try to do progressive things. It's sometimes difficult to do that. So we've been trying to focus on where funding is available. So where has the state decided, here's an opportunity that you can go for, and that you can apply, and we can get some funding, and we can go to that next level and get some really good stuff done. So a few years ago, we did a school travel plan, and that formed the basis for a Safe Routes to School grant that we were awarded for $216,000. Plus, we're getting some technical assistance that's worth tens of thousands of dollars of free engineering work. Plus, we had our kickoff meeting just two weeks ago, and they promised us that if we do an overrun, we can appeal for even more funding. So this is happening, and the Safe Walking and Cycling Committee is behind that, and it's a huge chunk of money that we just don't otherwise wouldn't have. And what we'll be doing with this is improving the sidewalks in the neighborhoods around Irving and Bartle schools. Again, it's Safe Routes to School funding, so it had to be around the schools, but it's going to benefit the entire community and all both neighborhoods there. So these opportunities don't necessarily always arise for people, but we have one person on our committee that took a lead on another grant opportunity, again worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's an infrastructure grant to create a bicycle and pedestrian network. We were the first community in the state of New Jersey to do a bicycle analysis, and we had transportation specialists from each community, from each county in the state, come out on a stinking hot August day. And we were all on our bikes, and we drove around in groups, and we took photos, and we took notes of good intersections and bad intersections, and good sightlines and bad sightlines, and that formed the basis for a grant that we submitted to the New Jersey Department of Transportation for this technical support to create a pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure for us. We were awarded the grant. Our kickoff meeting is on Monday, and the Department of Transportation has given us an engineering firm that is going to create this infrastructure for us, and it will be part of our master plan, which we will be reviewing next year in 2019. So it's a big chunk of that project, and it's a big project in and of itself. And Sean Meehan is our co-chair of our Safe Walking and Cycling Committee, and he took the lead on this. What? Vice chair, I'm sorry. He's the vice chair. And he took the lead on that. He worked on the Safe Routes to School grant. He also pretty much single-handedly did the pop-up bike lane on Walter Avenue at the Earth Day celebration. And he was there all day. And you were at the street fair in full sun without any sunscreen the entire day for us. You show up all the time and you just make things happen. And this is a huge, I mean, this is the Ka-Ching Award, so thank you.
I feel really pressured because we don't have T-shirts and pins, but we should get reflective vests. So as Susie mentioned, our committee is fairly new, but as my kids call it, I really feel like we have the A-team on this committee with Peter and Jan, and we have Kelsey, Ralph, and so many other folks that are really, really passionate. So it makes our job a lot easier. So thank you guys. Thank you, Susie. Susie's been a really big proponent and advocate of walking and biking, so it makes our job very easy. But we could not have done half of the things that we've done in the short amount of time that we've been around without Sean. So, and he's a co-worker, but he's also a friend, and he really pitches in. So, thank you, Sean. Do you have anything to add?
I just want to say 3 things. One is, as a former councilwoman, I respect and acknowledge the contributions that all the volunteers make. And every committee has a few really special people without whom the committee wouldn't function. We're lucky that we have many skilled professionals on our committee for whom this volunteer work is their passion as well as their skill. But I want to say about Sean, he's the sort of volunteer that you want, because when you ask him to do something, he says yes. He says yes pleasantly, he works with others, his ego is intact, and he's just a joy. So I can say without a doubt that he is the best volunteer of the year 2018 has ever seen. Thank you.
Sean, do you want to say something?
Oh, I just kind of want to echo what Trish said. Our committee is amazing, and everything we've done, they make it sound like, I did a lot. It wouldn't have been done without the rest of our committee. I'm honored to be able to work with such amazing, talented people. And, all the stories I've heard tonight about the rest of you, it's amazing that there are so many dedicated, talented, just wonderful people in such a small town. It's a little overwhelming. I've never really lived in a place like this before. And I think it's amazing. So thank you all as well.
Thank you. Okay, so before we wrap up and enjoy some cookies, I just wanted to say one thing. Trish is the mother of one of the most amazing high school students we have. Trish, would you tell us a couple of things? Oh my gosh. Every day she's in the news.
I volunteer today.
Tell everybody what she's accomplished in this last week.
Okay, well, so my daughter she's been a part of the Highland Park track team. They won but they won a state championship in the spring of last year, which was the first time since 1980. They won it again in winter. It was the first time ever, because the winter track team, it didn't exist a couple of years ago. And then this past spring, they missed it by 3 points of gaining the state title, so we got runner-up. And my daughter, and there's only 6 of these girls, which is amazing. I mean, we're a small school, so we don't have a lot of 6 kids. So so my daughter is a long jumper. She's also a sprinter. She won the county. She's the county champ. She's the Central Jersey champ, and now she's the state champ.
And where's she going to college?
And she's going to Rutgers. Rutgers University.
She also got the county athletic scholar.
She just got the GMC Scholar Athlete Award.
So,
Yeah.
Susan Roth has been a long time volunteer, and she was she employed by the library?
She has a 40-year history with the borough. She had been the children's librarian, the library director, and she was on the library board for 25 years.
That's what I knew. That's how I knew.
Right, and she died in May. That's her short illness, and we're going to miss her every day.
Yeah, I'm sure. We all will.
Thank you. Sure.
And I did notice also that we neglected, or I neglected, one of Matt's awards. Matt, would you like to say something about Dr.
Cliff,
Lacey?
yeah, he's not here. So Cliff Lacey is the, well, right now is the only member of the Mayor's Wellness Campaign, even though we're revitalizing it. The Mayor's Wellness Campaign is operating through the State Mayor's Wellness Campaign program, and basically dovetails a lot with the Board of Health as far as raising awareness for health and wellness and developing programs around that. Cliff is full of ideas. If you know him, he's the former health commissioner of New Jersey, but more important, he's a Highland Park resident and community volunteer. And he is a new father, and seems to be re-energized by the whole process. So thank you to Cliff.
Yeah, and also,
Dr. Lacey.
yes, Dr. Lacey.
Dr. Lacey. And if it's flu season, you're going to get the elbow bump, and not that it has.
And he was also responsible for helping us get status as New Jersey's first heart-safe community. And also with, we just got a grant for this year from the New Jersey Quality Health Institute of New Jersey, something like that, a lot of initials. And for the programs that we have through the Mayor's Wellness Campaign, including, walks with me and workouts with me and the heart-safe stuff, and and you're all welcome to join me on my walks, So that really concludes our program for this evening. Again, I want to thank all of you for all of the work that you do for our community day in and day out. I want to thank the council members who were here tonight and who work very diligently with their committees. We have many goals that we want to accomplish, and you are the key to helping us achieve those goals. Thank you again.